Hey, you, why are you sitting here?
I'm waiting for my wife. She's inside shopping.
I'm Officer Reynolds. Let me see some ID.
Is there a problem?
I'm just waiting. You're parked in a handicapped spot, Mr.
Walker. James Walker. I'm disabled.
What are you doing here? Waiting on my spouse, sir. She's purchasing groceries inside. I need identification. I'm Officer Mitchell. Have I done something wrong? I'm simply waiting here. Officer Bradley Mitchell had zero understanding of the situation he just created. During the following 5 decades imprisoned, Mitchell would continuously relive this encounter. The brief moments when he seized David Martinez's mobile device, the dozen onlookers who documented everything with their devices, and the multi-million-dollar error of questioning someone who'd already given more to his nation than Mitchell could imagine. The individual sitting in that parking area wasn't pretending. David Martinez was a distinguished combat veteran who'd earned a Purple Heart after losing both lower limbs to an explosive device overseas. He'd also served 2 decades as a federal law enforcement agent. Martinez understood civil liberties legislation better than most police supervisors. He'd provided courtroom testimony in federal proceedings countless times and had examined similar situations from the investigator's perspective. Rather than listing his qualifications, Martinez remained composed. He articulated his legal protections clearly and allowed Mitchell to create his own problems with each misguided statement. The recording device on Mitchell's uniform captured everything. Each dismissive remark, each unlawful command, and the instant he forcibly removed a paralyzed veteran from his mobility device and left him on the pavement. Martinez was raised in a major Midwestern city. At 22, he joined military service, motivated by patriotism and a desire to contribute meaningfully. Deployed overseas in the early 2000s, he completed multiple tours as a combat medical specialist, earning trust and recognition from his unit and commanding officers. During his second deployment, his convoy struck an improvised explosive. The explosion was catastrophic. Martinez regained consciousness at a military medical facility overseas with both legs amputated below the knees. He was 28 years old. Medical professionals informed him prosthetic limbs would be permanent. The military honored him with a Purple Heart and granted an honorable medical separation. Yet Martinez wasn't finished serving his country. Following a year of intensive physical rehabilitation, Martinez learned to function with prosthetics and adapted his mobility skills. He successfully applied to federal law enforcement, where he spent the next 2 decades investigating civil rights violations and police misconduct, testifying in federal proceedings and mastering legal frameworks comprehensively. After retiring at 45, Martinez relocated to a mountain region with his spouse, Rebecca. They purchased property near scenic areas. Martinez stayed involved with veteran support networks, mentoring younger disabled veterans and volunteering at veterans' medical facilities. He maintained a modest lifestyle, rarely discussing his military service unless prompted and never leveraging his federal background for personal gain. Externally, Martinez appeared as any wheelchair user might. People noticed the mobility device without recognizing the commendations, the federal badge, or the individual who'd sacrificed his legs serving his country and devoted 20 years to enforcing federal law. That's precisely what Officer Bradley Mitchell perceived that day, merely someone in a wheelchair occupying space. Mitchell joined the municipal police department at 24 after completing academy training and field preparation. He received his badge and firearm, working patrol assignments for 8 years with an apparently clean official record. No significant complaints or disciplinary measures documented. However, his colleagues recognized something different. Mitchell had developed a reputation for rapid escalation, poor listening skills, and making assumptions based on appearances. Fellow officers observed these patterns but never filed reports. Mitchell believed he possessed an innate ability to detect dishonesty, trusting instinct over evidence and assuming superior judgment over those he encountered. He'd stopped numerous individuals in accessible parking spaces throughout his career. Sometimes violations existed, people misusing others' permits, but Mitchell began perceiving fraud everywhere, convincing himself most disabled individuals were fabricating their conditions. He'd make dismissive comments at the station, claiming many permit holders could function normally. His training supervisor had cautioned him years earlier, stop making assumptions. Actually listen to people. Verify facts before taking action. Mitchell acknowledged the advice but never genuinely modified his behavior, believing his instincts superior to established protocols and that he could identify deception through observation alone. The day he approached Martinez, Mitchell had already issued multiple parking citations that week and was seeking another. Seeing someone in a wheelchair in an accessible space with proper veteran plates, Mitchell decided, without investigation, that this represented another fraudulent situation. He approached that wheelchair with predetermined conclusions, not seeking information but attempting to expose perceived dishonesty. That certainty, that refusal to listen, that presumption of superior knowledge, these destroyed his career and freedom. It was a Tuesday afternoon in the city. Weather conditions were pleasant. The supermarket parking area bustled with activity, families loading vehicles, shoppers with carts. An ordinary day. Martinez sat in his wheelchair near the entrance, parked in a designated accessible space. His vehicle displayed proper disabled veteran registration. Everything was lawful and correct. Martinez waited for Rebecca, who'd entered the store for a few items. He preferred remaining outdoors, enjoying fresh air while checking his mobile device, bothering nobody. Officer Mitchell was patrolling nearby, conducting routine passes through the parking facility. He noticed Martinez and slowed, staring intently. He circled back, positioning his patrol vehicle beside Martinez's car before exiting. Mitchell approached with his body camera recording, standard procedure capturing every interaction. He observed the wheelchair and disabled plates, then made his initial error, assuming Martinez didn't belong there. Martinez noticed the approaching officer and remained calm. He'd interacted with law enforcement previously and understood proper conduct. Having nothing to conceal and occupying a legal space with legitimate documentation, Martinez anticipated a brief conversation, perhaps the officer checking on his well-being. He had no conception of what would transpire. Other people were nearby in the parking area, a woman loading groceries several spaces away, someone returning a shopping cart, a teenage employee collecting carts near the entrance. None paid attention initially, simply continuing their activities. Within minutes, however, all would have their phones out, recording, becoming witnesses to something unforgettable. Mitchell positioned himself before Martinez's wheelchair without smiling or introducing himself politely, simply staring downward. "What are you doing here?" Martinez maintained vocal composure. "Waiting on my spouse, sir. She's inside purchasing groceries." Mitchell wasn't satisfied. "I need identification. I'm Officer Mitchell." Martinez remained courteous. "Have I done something wrong?" "I'm simply waiting." Mitchell indicated the accessible space. "The issue is you're occupying an accessible spot. I am disabled. I'm a veteran. Notice my plates." Mitchell circled the wheelchair, examining the plates and seeing the disabled veteran designation. Then he uttered words that would haunt him. "Many people abuse those permits. Stand up." Martinez's tone remained unchanged. "I cannot stand, sir." Mitchell crossed his arms. "Certainly you can. Stand up and demonstrate you require that chair, or I'm citing you for fraud." Martinez produced his Veterans Affairs identification, holding it visibly. He explained slowly and distinctly his veteran status, his combat injuries in Afghanistan, the disability rating printed directly on the card. Mitchell glanced briefly, then dismissed it with a wave. "I've witnessed people fabricate injuries previously. Those prosthetics cost significantly. You're probably defrauding the system." Martinez requested a supervisor. Mitchell refused. By now, parking lot occupants were beginning to notice. The woman loading groceries stopped and turned. The person with the shopping cart stood motionless. The teenager near the entrance extracted his phone. Mitchell leaned closer, voice escalating. "Final opportunity. Stand up or I'm removing you myself." Martinez had experienced far more dangerous situations. Combat fire in Afghanistan, confronting armed suspects as a federal agent. He understood maintaining composure under pressure. He kept his hands visible, voice steady, repeating the same information. "I am a disabled veteran. I cannot stand. You are committing assault." But Mitchell had already decided. He wasn't listening or thinking, only acting. What he did next would cost him everything. Mitchell reached down, grasping Martinez's left arm and yanking upward without warning. Martinez's body jerked. The wheelchair rocked. "I am a disabled veteran. I cannot stand." "You are assaulting me," Martinez stated clearly and loudly. Mitchell didn't stop. Using both hands, he pulled harder. The wheelchair began tipping forward. Martinez attempted bracing himself but couldn't prevent it. The chair tipped. Martinez fell, crashing onto concrete pavement. The impact was severe. His elbow struck first, then his shoulder, ribs slamming into the ground. His pant leg shifted upward, exposing the prosthetic limb underneath. The metal and plastic components became visible, undeniable, real. The woman in the parking area screamed. "He genuinely cannot walk." Another bystander shouted at Mitchell to stop. Two people were now recording on phones. The teenager filmed everything. Mitchell froze for 3 seconds, standing there staring down at Martinez on the ground, at the prosthetic leg he just exposed. Mitchell attempted helping Martinez up. Martinez pulled his arm away. "Don't touch me," Martinez said, voice still calm and controlled but firmer. "You just assaulted a disabled veteran. Don't touch me again." That 3-second freeze was when Mitchell realized he'd made an error. He'd just forcibly removed a paralyzed individual from a wheelchair before witnesses, captured on his own body camera. But he still didn't know who David Martinez was, didn't know about the federal career, the investigative training. He believed this was merely poor judgment. He had no conception this was the end of his life as he knew it. Martinez remained on the ground. He wouldn't allow Mitchell to move him or permit this to be concealed. He knew precisely what he was doing, preserving the scene, keeping witnesses engaged, ensuring everyone observed what had transpired. Inside the supermarket, Rebecca Martinez was completing her purchase, unaware of outside events. She paid, collected bags, and walked toward the exit. Then she heard shouting. Rebecca rushed through the automatic doors, seeing her husband on the ground with the officer standing over him. She dropped the grocery bags, sprinting across the parking area, falling to her knees beside David. "Are you injured?" "What happened?" "I'm all right. He removed me from my chair." Rebecca looked up at Mitchell, voice trembling, not from fear but fury. "Do you comprehend who you just assaulted?" Mitchell didn't respond. Rebecca extracted her phone, calling their attorney first, then David's former federal supervisor. She activated speaker mode so Mitchell could hear. When the supervisor answered, Rebecca stated clearly, "Someone just assaulted David, a police officer. He forcibly removed him from his wheelchair. We need assistance." The supervisor requested their location. Rebecca provided it. He promised immediate action, instructing them to remain and document everything. 2 backup officers arrived within minutes. Mitchell attempted explaining. He'd believed Martinez was fabricating, just performing his duties. The backup officers requested Martinez's name. Upon hearing it, one officer paled. David Martinez? Federal Agent Martinez? This officer had worked a joint task force with Martinez years earlier, knowing exactly who Martinez was. He turned to Mitchell. "You need to step back immediately." The backup officers summoned an ambulance and supervisor, separating Mitchell from Martinez and collecting witness statements. The woman loading groceries approached. The cart person approached. The teenager displayed his phone. "I captured everything on video." Lieutenant Harrison arrived as shift supervisor. One glance at the scene revealed this was serious. He immediately secured Mitchell's body camera, instructed Mitchell to remain silent, interviewed all 12 bystanders, and collected contact information from everyone who'd recorded video. Harrison knelt beside Martinez. "Sir, I'm Lieutenant Harrison. Can you explain what occurred?" Martinez recounted the incident using precise language, stating facts without exaggeration or emotion, sounding exactly like a federal agent providing a statement. When Martinez mentioned his federal background, Harrison closed his eyes momentarily, recognizing this would become a federal case. Paramedics arrived, examining Martinez for injuries. He had concrete abrasions on his elbow, shoulder bruising, and rib pain with breathing. They wanted hospital transport. Martinez agreed. Rebecca followed in their vehicle. Mitchell was sent home pending investigation, believing he might receive a reprimand. He had no awareness the federal authorities were already making calls. Within hours, videos began circulating. One bystander posted raw footage online without commentary, just a police officer yanking someone from a wheelchair, someone clearly having prosthetic legs, someone who'd remained calm throughout. The video spread rapidly. People shared it. Local news covered it, then regional, then national outlets. By the following morning, the story was everywhere. The image of Mitchell removing Martinez from his chair became symbolic. A disabled veteran treated criminally, a distinguished federal agent disbelieved and assaulted. Veterans groups issued statements demanding accountability. Disability rights organizations called for federal charges. The municipal police chief scheduled a press conference, announcing Mitchell's suspension without pay and departmental cooperation with federal investigation. But public response demanded more. Comment sections filled with demands for termination and criminal charges, questioning how this could happen to a war hero. The body camera footage was released through public records requests, making everything worse for Mitchell. His own camera showed everything, dismissing Martinez's identification, refusing to call a supervisor, grabbing and pulling Martinez, the fall, his frozen reaction upon seeing the prosthetic leg. The footage was undeniable, not edited, not out of context. Exactly what it appeared, an officer assaulting a disabled veteran who'd repeatedly stated he couldn't stand. The federal authorities opened a civil rights investigation immediately, ensured by Martinez's former supervisor. This transcended local police matters. This was federal. Federal investigators reviewed all camera footage and witness videos, interviewed all 12 bystanders, and pulled Martinez's medical records with permission. The medical documentation was unambiguous. Both legs amputated below knees following an explosive device injury overseas. The injury was permanent. No question about his disability status. The Veterans Administration had rated him fully disabled, receiving benefits for years with custom-made prosthetics for his specific needs. Federal prosecutors charged Mitchell with 3 crimes: civil rights violation, assault on a disabled person, and battery, all federal charges. Mitchell hired an attorney through the police union who advised silence, but evidence was overwhelming. The trial began months later, lasting 3 weeks. The prosecution's case was straightforward. They played the body camera footage and called all 12 witnesses. Every single witness told the identical story. Mitchell ignored Martinez's explanations, dismissed the identification card, refused calling a supervisor, and used physical force on someone who'd clearly stated his disability. Martinez testified for 2 hours, describing his military service, losing his legs, his federal career, then the assault, the pain of hitting concrete, the humiliation of disbelief despite showing proof, the fear Mitchell might inflict worse harm. Martinez's testimony was calm, never raising his voice, simply telling the truth. The defense argued Mitchell made an error in judgment without malicious intent, just attempting to enforce law, believing Martinez was committing fraud. The prosecution demolished that argument. Mitchell had visible evidence: the disabled veteran plates, the Veterans Affairs identification, Martinez's clear statements, and Mitchell ignored everything, then used force. That wasn't error. That was choice. The jury watched the body camera footage multiple times and heard from 8 bystanders during trial. All said the same. Martinez was calm, Mitchell was aggressive. Martinez attempted de-escalation. Mitchell refused listening. The jury deliberated 1 day, then returned guilty on all 3 charges. The judge scheduled sentencing 3 weeks post-verdict. Martinez opted to give a victim impact statement. He stood at the podium in federal court. Rebecca sat in the front row behind him. Martinez didn't read from notes, speaking directly to the judge. He'd served his country for years, first military, then federal law enforcement. He'd taken an oath to protect and serve, lived by that oath, sacrificed for it, lost his legs for it. And on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, an officer who'd taken the same oath treated him criminally, not because Martinez violated any law, but because Mitchell didn't believe him. Mitchell saw a wheelchair user and assumed fraud. He saw disabled veteran registration and assumed theft. He saw Veterans Affairs identification and assumed forgery. Martinez said he'd experienced discrimination previously. People stared at his wheelchair, spoke condescendingly, assumed incapability, but he'd never been physically assaulted for being disabled, never been pulled from his chair and thrown to the ground. The judge listened, then spoke. This case represented a betrayal of public trust. Mitchell had power, a badge, authority, and used that power to harm someone who'd already sacrificed more than most people ever would. The judge said the sentence needed to reflect that betrayal's severity. Officer Bradley Mitchell was sentenced to 52 years in federal prison with no parole possibility. The courtroom went silent. Mitchell dropped his head. His attorney argued the sentence was excessive. The judge disagreed, stating that assaulting a disabled veteran on camera after being repeatedly told the individual couldn't stand warranted every year of that sentence. Mitchell lost his badge that day, lost his pension, lost his freedom. He was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. Martinez watched him go, then left with Rebecca. They didn't celebrate, simply went home. The city settled Martinez's civil lawsuit for $6.8 million. The settlement came quickly. The city recognized they had no defense, evidence too clear, jury verdict making civil court loss certain. So they paid. But Martinez didn't just take the money and disappear. He used part of the settlement establishing a foundation helping disabled veterans navigate legal issues, connecting them with attorneys, providing resources, teaching them their rights. Martinez wanted ensuring other disabled veterans didn't experience what he experienced. The municipal police department implemented changes too. Mandatory disability awareness training for every officer. New recruits receive it at the academy. Veteran officers take refresher courses. The training uses Martinez's case as an example, watching the body camera footage, discussing Mitchell's errors, learning proper disability claim verification, learning to listen instead of assume. The body camera footage is now used in police academies nationwide as a training video on what not to do. Instructors show it to cadets, pausing at key moments, asking what Mitchell should have done differently. The answer is obvious. Believe the evidence before you. Verify before acting. Don't let assumptions override reality. Martinez gives speeches now, at police academies, at veteran events. He shares his story not for sympathy but to teach. He tells officers disabilities aren't always visible, credentials aren't always obvious, assumptions can destroy lives. Rebecca advocates too, focusing on invisible disabilities, conditions people can't see by looking. She pushes for better training, awareness, and policies, wanting officers to understand that not looking disabled doesn't mean someone's fabricating. Mitchell is serving his sentence at a federal facility. He'll be 91 years old before he's eligible for release. His earliest possible release date is decades away. He'll spend the rest of his productive life imprisoned. All because he refused believing someone in a wheelchair. All because he thought he knew better. All because he let assumptions guide his actions instead of the evidence directly before him. This story raises important questions about assumptions, authority, and accountability. How many officers are currently making the same assumptions Mitchell made? How many disabled individuals get questioned, harassed, or worse because someone doesn't believe them? How many veterans who serve this country get treated like criminals because their disability isn't obvious enough? Without demanding better training, better accountability, and better awareness, we're waiting for the next Mitchell, the next Martinez, and the next assault that should never have happened.